Hey guys, welcome back to Your Lake Fork Guide. Another episode of the Guides Network with yours truly today. You know, we're coming up on springtime. It's right here. It's just now starting. We've got a lot of spring coming up ahead of us here. And one of the best bass fishing tools, period, but especially during the spring, is going to be a jig. Now, a jig comes in a lot of varieties. And one of the reasons that a jig is such a good bait is it is so dang versatile. So today, we're going to talk about the different ways that I use a jig to catch fish throughout the spring. Well guys, as we get into spring, you know, these fish are spawning. They're thinking about spawning, they're getting real shallow, they're moving around, they're doing their spawning thing, and they kind of get isolated to an area and they don't move around a whole lot once they get in. Now once they get in, they'll be stationary, and when that happens, you got to fish real slow. And when you're fishing real slow, there's just no doubt that a jig is one of the best baits to go to. Now the all-around jig that I find myself using the very most throughout the springtime, and that is perfect for that slowing down, milking an area type of fishing, is going to be a 3/8 ounce hybrid jig from 6 Sense Fishing. This jig right here is very, 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 very weedless, which is important when you're flipping it around all this shallow cover that these fish like to spawn around. As far as colors, okay, I like to pick natural colors. You know, when we get to the spawning time of year, a bluegill or a brim is a bass's natural enemy. They eat them a lot before and after the spawn. They're fending their beds off from them during the spawn, so no matter what stage of the spawn, pre, during, or post that fish may be in, something that imitates a brim is going to get their attention every time. One of my very favorite colors from 6 Sense Fishing is called Grass Mutant, but anything that's kind of green and brown, a little bit of blue sheen in there, that always is good, but just a green and brown based jig is always going to be good around the springtime in Northeast Texas. Basically, with this 3/8 ounce hybrid jig, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip. I'm going to get in the backs of pockets, I'm going to find some shallow flooded cover, and I'm going to go to flipping. I'm going to flip it next to stumps. I'm going to flip it next to laydowns. I'm going to flip it next to flooded grass. If I've got some potato grass or alligator weed or pondweed, something like that, I'll put it right on the edge of that. If we've got lily pad stalks or lily pads starting to bloom, I'll flip it in those. I'm going to flip every piece of cover that I think a fish might be spawning around or thinking about spawning around with this jig right here. The key deal, like we said guys, is going slow. You almost have to imagine in your head there's a fish spawning on that stump, and you got to throw it up that stump, shake it, shake it, shake. I mean, you got to fish it real slow. Then you come out, flip it again, same spot sometimes. If it looks like a really good high percentage area, don't be scared to make multiple flips to a spot. That's how thorough and how slow you got to fish this jig sometimes in the springtime. Now, maybe my favorite way to fish a jig in the springtime is what we're fixing to talk about right now, because this suits me more. I like to cover a lot of water. I kind of like to power fish. I like to throw moving baits. That's what I tend to lean towards. And there's not much better in the springtime to do that than an old swim jig that looks a lot like a brim. Again, the Grass Mutant color is the one I have here. I've got a Smash Tech, Smash Tail Junior, and Smash Potato, which is just a great little brim color. If you look at it here, it's kind of got a green pumpkin with some flake on the back and orange belly. Man, that looks a lot like the brim that we have swimming around in this area. So pair those up, and I just go to covering water in the backs of these shallow pockets where these fish might be spawning. The good thing about throwing the old 6 Sense swim jig is it can go around and bump stumps, and it can come through grass, and it kind of goes through everything. It's like the 4-wheel drive of swimming jigs. So to recap, when I'm slowing down and I feel like the fish are on beds or really close to being on beds, I'm going to pick up the 3/8 ounce hybrid jig and go to flipping visible cover. When I'm covering water or searching for fish, or maybe I feel like they're in between waves during the spawn, something like that, I've got more post-spawn or pre-spawn fish than I do spawning fish, I'm going to pick up the swim jig, cover a ton of water. One other tool that can be really good is a lot of times in the springtime we'll get a lot of rain and we get some really dirty water, and 6 Sense makes a great swim jig. Okay, this black and blue swim jig, when the water's dirty, can absolutely catch the heck out of them in the springtime. This is one of my very first tools that I reach for, one of my favorite tools when I encounter dirty water during the spring. And one key feature that's very important to me on the swim jig from 6 Cents Fishing, there is a screw lock in there, guys. That bait cannot come off there. You will not waste trailers. Unless a fish bites your tail and rips it off, that trailer will stay on there all day. I'll unscrew it here and show you that screw lock real quick. My skirt will quit getting twisted up in it. There you go, right there. You can see that screw lock going down the shank of that hook. You saw how easy it was to twist off. It's just as easy to twist back on. And once it's on there, like I said, guys, that bait, you can see me pulling the plastic. It's stuck like Chuck, boys. It ain't going nowhere. And the last, but certainly not least, way that I like to use a jig in the springtime is my big old scrape jig. I like to punch these shallow grass mats. All kinds of grass, not just the underwater aquatic vegetation like hydrilla or coontail, but you know, in Lake Fork every once in a while we get some hyacinth. We always have pondweed, gatorweed, stuff like that, and they'll float up against the bank. The hyacinth mats will, the other ones will grow out off the bank, and these will be shallow mats in 1 foot, 2, 3 foot of water, but that's enough room. And big fish, really big fish, really like heavy cover, and there's no better way to get into their house and into their kitchen and make them bite than throwing a big old 1 ounce or 1 3/8 ounce scrape jig from 6 Cents Fishing. Again, screw lock for the trailer, so when you're going in and out of that heavy cover, you don't rip your trailers off. When the fish bites your bait, you don't lose your trailer. Again, the only way you're going to lose it, if a fish only bites the trailer, you set the hook and rip the bait. That's the only way you ever have to change a trailer on these. It's unbelievable how many more casts I get to make in a day because I'm not changing trailers. So pretty simple topic today. Just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of the jigs. I use jigs a lot in the springtime. They've been known to be big fish baits. I'm going to use these on a variety of rods. My swim jig rod, I like the 7.3 Heavy from the Lux series. I like to throw it on 20-pound fluorocarbon on my swim jigs. The 3/8 ounce jig, my 3/8 ounce hybrid jig, I like to throw on the 7.5 Heavy with a moderate fast action tip. Same thing, 20-pound fluorocarbon. And then for my big punching scrape jig, 1 ounce, 1 3/8 ounce, I actually like to go up to the 7.6 Heavy Lux rod. I like to throw that on 65-pound braid when I'm punching all that heavy cover. It's a pretty good one. Go folks at home, how about that right there? Boy, that old 6 Cent swim jig. So there you go, guys. Like we said, jig, great way to catch a giant fish. Sure hope you enjoyed today's video. More than that, I hope it helps some of you guys maybe catch a couple more fish on a jig. I know a jig can be kind of a thing that people can be a little bit intimidated by sometimes. It tends to be a big fish bait. Maybe it gets fewer bites than a Texas rig, but during the springtime, it honestly doesn't. Once you get the confidence in that jig, you'll get just as many bites and your bites will be bigger. So get over to 6centsfishing.com. Be sure you order up some of these jigs. Put them in your hands this spring. Go catch some big bass. When you go to 6centsfishing.com, be sure you punch in that code, your Lake Fork Guide. Get a 10% discount on all orders. Whether you're ordering a rod, some of their awesome, amazing apparel that they do, or a jig, crankbaits, anything from 6 Cents Fishing, you punch in the code, your Lake Fork Guide, get you a 10% discount. It's our way of saying thank you to you. And we sure appreciate 6 Cents for participating and thanking you guys. By the way, these jig trailers, this is a smash crawl. That's the one I prefer to use on my hybrid jig when I'm flipping. You find that at Smash Tech Baits. The Smash Tail Junior is my preferred swim jig trailer. You can find that at Smash Tech Baits as well. SmashTechBaits.com, linked in the description as always. Please do go check that out. Order something from Mr. Heath. What a great guy, great company, great baits made by a great guy at Smash Tech. I think that's going to do it today. Sure appreciate you guys watching. We will see y'all next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.